feel a little bit out of place here, but having heard where everyone else is coming from, disciplinarily, I don't feel so out of place now, but I'm an art historian, so this is quite an unusual context for me. This is the project which I'm going to be working on alongside Lucas Ferguson-Sharp and Toby Lloyd, who are both artists and PhD students at Northumbria University and Newcastle University, respectively. It's called Opening Doors, Art and Inequality in the Platform Economy. So I'm just going to talk very briefly about some of the kind of starting points for the project. So there's been an awful lot of attention paid over the past kind of few years to questions of cultural inequality. There was a report last year called the Panic Report, which highlighted a number of ways in which kind of culture is becoming increasingly, I guess, monocultural, both in terms of access to the arts and culture, but also, crucially for us, in terms of labour, in terms of who gets to work in the cultural industries. And one of the primary reasons for that is just how poorly work in the art field is paid, if it's at all paid. Around the same time as the Panic Report came out, the Arts Council England published their report on the livelihoods of visual artists, which concluded that, at least in terms of self-identification, only 11% of artists could live off their income from their art practice. So you have 89% of artists who you would assume are looking elsewhere to support their art practice. I was previously based in Edinburgh up until this summer, and Edinburgh is a hotbed for the platform economy, so this might have been amplified because I was in Edinburgh, but anecdotally, speaking to artists, I was increasingly aware that artists were really turning towards gig work or work that's based around platforms as a source of this kind of second income that would support their art practice. So artists letting out spare rooms on Airbnb or working as Deliveroo riders in order to kind of supplement the low pay of their art practice. So this is a kind of interesting shadow economy for art. I did some kind of research in Edinburgh on this last year. It started off with a big kind of symposium. This is some documentation of that symposium. It led on to interviews with 16 artists who support their practices through work in the platform economy, or the gig economy. And this is terrible because they're different things, but I keep mixing them up, and I need to settle on one. And so we've got kind of individual experiences of how artists, how the kind of gig work that artists are doing is influencing their practice. But that's quite, looking at it in terms of interviews is very individualized. It was kind of difficult to see anything more structural that we might glean from it, particularly in terms of this question that we've added into it for this sort of second phase of this project, which is the question of inequality. These are some of the questions which kind of emerged out of interviews and has kind of shaped our thinking subsequently. How has artists' reliance on work in the platform economy impacted on the entrenched inequalities of the cultural field? I would add to that, we've already heard about the inequalities of the platform or the gig economy. So how do these two spheres of inequality, what happens when they rub up against each other? How might changes in platforms impact upon these inequalities? Again, this is kind of hinted at earlier in terms of what would like a just platform economy look like. And what role do platforms within cultural economies have in shaping the inequalities of the sector? Things like Bandcamp and Etsy, prominent examples. So what we're going to do is, with scaling up from these small-scale interviews, I think one of the issues around this is that I think artists are generally quite reticent to talk about their working conditions. And so we have established a series of 6 workshops, which is going to be held in collaboration with the Newbridge Project, which is an artist-led initiative in Newcastle and Gateshead, at their Gateshead space. And each one of these workshops we've almost been thinking about it as a kind of Alcoholics Anonymous. So, artists to talk to one another frankly and honestly and openly about how they make ends meet, how they are able to produce the work that they produce. And we've themed each one. We have a kind of introduction and a concluding session, but in the middle we've got different sessions built around questions of inequality, of solidarity between artists, of in-kind support, which is a big thing in the art world, and also the question of funding and the kind of arts economies more broadly. And yeah, that's what we're doing. So thanks.